Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO. Yesterday, my next guest, along with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, unveiled SB 6, Senate Bill 6, which is called the Texas Privacy Act. A lot of folks also calling it the Texas Bathroom Bill. And joining me to talk about this piece of legislation, the senator who will be carrying it through the Senate, Senator Lois Kolkhorst. Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Good morning, Chad. I'm fine, thanks.
Well, glad to have you back on the show. And I know the legislative session is about to begin. And yesterday, you, along with the Lieutenant Governor, made quite a bit of news with Senate Bill 6. Tell our listeners what all is in this bill.
Yeah, Chad, let me first walk through what I think the media largely ignores, which is the reason for the bill. That is something that has been missing in all of the news media reports for months now. But on May the 13th of 2016, the Department of Education and the Department of Justice issued a letter to all schools across the country that addressed Title IX and talked about gender identity, which refers to an individual's internal sense of gender, and then went on to say that you had to, however someone identifies on a given day, allow them access into showers, locker rooms, restroom facilities, and even suggest sports and other activities, overnight housing, etc. And so we saw, the Fort Worth ISD, without a vote, the school board pass a blanket kind of policy for its school district, and they actually have since revoked that. We saw Dripping Springs ISD do something very similar. And so this is in response mainly to the May 13th, 2016 letter from the Department of Education and the Department of Justice, who threatened our schools to adopt policies pushed down from the federal government. So this bill actually says to all businesses, you do what you want to do with your shower facilities, your restrooms, your changing rooms. It's up to you. You're free enterprise. The second part of the bill says that schools and universities and public settings, there will be men's and women's restrooms, and those will be identified with biological sex. The other thing that the bill does is that it enhances any penalties it raises the penalties for crimes committed in these very private settings that we find ourselves in to protect all citizens. And I think that the bill, works to strike a balance that would address what we expect in our government buildings, public schools, and universities, while allowing, private entities, free enterprise, to do what they see fit in their place of business.
Well, and when I was looking at this piece of legislation yesterday that has been filed, and you're going to carry it through the Senate, the Lieutenant Governor said this is one of his big priorities in the upcoming legislative session. And again, you wrapped it up there by saying in public schools, public universities, government buildings, you have to go to the locker room, bathroom that corresponds with your biological sex. For businesses, a city cannot pass an ordinance that would require you to force you to do something where you have to allow someone to use the bathroom of their gender identity, correct? That it would overrule some of these ordinances that are already in place.
Yeah, I think we have 5 cities that have passed these. And let me say, Chad, that what's important here is that we're not going to tell businesses what to do either way. Businesses can decide on their own. And I think that that's a really good protection overall. Someone asked me yesterday, how do you accommodate the transgender child in schools? And what this bill does say is that it allows schools to make personal accommodations for those children that present, different in different settings, special needs, and so it does not ignore that among us there are folks that are different, but it also ensures for parents that we do not have young boys and young girls showering in facilities in our public schools in the same place. And so I think that's an important point that we must make.
I want to bring up some of the criticisms and let you respond to this, because there are going to be a lot of questions about this. The Texas Association of Business, they have a group that I believe is called Keep Texas Open for Business, something to that effect. They've predicted that Texas could lose anywhere from $900 million to $8.5 billion in the first year if this is passed. How do you respond to that? Because that seems.
Let's go into that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many people have read that, but it's based off of a lot of hypothetical situations. Let's go to Houston, who defeated the HERO ordinance 61% to 39%. They are now hosting the Super Bowl and soon to host the Final Four as well. Here's the thing that I think is extremely important for all of us to consider. That whether it's the NFL, the NBA, the NCAA, of which I was a college athlete, we cannot allow them to dictate to us what our policies should be. Where does that stop? Where does that stop? Okay? What if they say, what if the NFL says or the NCAA says, we're not going to host any events in your state unless you do X? Or if you pass this, we're not.
Right.
Where does that stop? And that makes them actually become a supreme power. And so with that, I say, I'm always sensitive. That's why the bill is addressing that businesses can do what they want. If you look at our sporting arenas and our entertainment venues in the bill, it allows for, if that is leased by a private company, the private company is covered under the first part of the bill, which is it allows them to handle showers, locker rooms, and dressing rooms just as a private business would. So looking to that, we try to address that. And, I think the Amarillo newspaper recently got it right. I think they wrote an article right before Christmas. And I will say that they basically said, that the Amarillo Globe News said that this fight was not something that we looked for. It came to us by the Obama administration through the Department of Education and the Department of Justice, of which, we have several states have sued, and a judge has given a stay on that. But as a former college athlete and a high school athlete, I will tell you that if you read the letter from the Department of Justice and the Department of Education, I believe that it begins to erode Title IX and the protections that women actually had in certain areas such as sports. And I do believe that this is a slippery slope. Some of the criticism has been that we're not sensitive to all children, especially those that internally identify as a different sex of what they have originally been born with. Let me say this, my heart, I've thought about it and pondered it a lot. And that is why I would encourage each school district to handle those accommodations in a very personal manner. Personal privacy is something that I think we all hold dear as a woman. When I go into those very private settings of showers or locker rooms or even restrooms, those are our most, in public settings, those are the most intimate places that we go into. It's not the transgender that you worry about. Maybe all of us have been in a restroom, but it is someone who particularly identifies that particular day.
How big of a fight do you expect over this piece of legislation? We have about a minute left.
How big of a fight? I think that these are these are going to be things that are discussed, and I think that they're important when we talk about personal privacy. I have long championed personal privacy in our medical records and HB 300. I've worked to say that you own your DNA, not the government. When the government was selling infants' blood spots, I stood up to the state government and said, you can't do that, and protecting parental and privacy rights. I'm I think it's going to be a tough fight, but I think it's one that we need to have discourse on,
Senator,
and have discussion on.
Senator, thank you for your time. I got to get going. I appreciate it.
You bet.